Hello and welcome to Marginal Support, where support is anything but marginal. I'm your host, Andre Lindy, and today's guest is someone who we've just been bouncing back and forth, rescheduling here and there. So, Shay, it's great to finally see you here, have you on the show.
Yes, I am excited to finally be here. I know we were saying it's the little humans. We had to do a lot of like bouncing around and rescheduling, but it's great because now we're finally here. So I'm excited.
Exactly. Exactly. No, this is great. It was very interesting the way that you reached out. I put out a call for people, said, "Hey, I'm looking for people to come on the show." You hit me on LinkedIn. You said, "Hey, I want to come on." I'm like, "Great, let's make this work." So, through a discussion, you came up with a couple ideas. But before we get into that, I want
Mhm.
people to learn about you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. So I'm Shay. I have been in support for over a decade, and that's like literally including being a customer support rep and just working my way up from like team leads and into supervisors and now a manager in support. So I've been a manager in support for I think it's almost 8 years, about 8 years. Um, and I've just had some really great influence and some really not so great influence, and that's just really made me who I am today when it comes to being a leader. So I always lead with that, and it's so funny because I really do go off of the experiences that I had from past managers. And so those really great managers that I had that took me under their wing and coached me and mentored me. I'm like, this is great. This is why I want to become a manager, to do this for other people. And then those managers that made things really tough for me and like they didn't have my best they weren't thinking about my future coaching or like being helpful. I'm like, I took a piece of that too because now I'm like, let me make sure that I'm never like that type of manager. So it's basically the mix, and it's made me kind of the best of both worlds, honestly. But like I said, in support for the last 8 years, I've been working in tech for about five. And yeah, what's I think like what's my bread and butter or what's like my go-to or my jam is like working for startups because I get the opportunity to build from like a plain slate. Like everything is new. There are no systems. I can come in, I can leave my footprint, and that's really where I thrive. So when you put out those feelers and you're like, hey, I want to talk to somebody about support, I'm really working on building a brand and not just being like Shay who works for whatever company and attaching myself to a specific company, but building who I am as a person and what I have to offer. So this year I've been very intentional on building a Shay brand who is like helping new managers or managers that are looking to pivot and just like give them the information that I have that I can help them with.
You said so many things that resound there with me. I mean, first, I think we do learn more from the people that said, "I'm never going to be like that person." I mean, I had great managers and I took some time, but when I was shaping who I was being as a manager, I'm like, I'm never going to be that person. So
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly agree right there. Yeah, the startup thing. It is when you go into a startup and you see kind of chaos and you bring some order to that chaos. It does bring you some joy,
Yeah.
but then you take what you learned there and then you take it to the next spot. So you're just kind of building block upon block upon block from
Yep.
everything that you've learned in the past. So you create a better version of you every day. I mean, so I love that attitude you have right there.
And honestly, it really makes me who I am because most people look at it as like, oh, I'm working for this company and like, like I have to adhere to how they want me to work. But for me, I look at it as like, no, this is something, this is skill, this is talent that I'm going to take with me. Like you can't hold on, like you can hold on to the things that I build for your company, but like when I move and it's time for me to go on to the next thing, I'm taking that experience. I'm taking the testing, I'm taking the trials, the fails, the successes, I'm taking all of that with me. And so that's really why I'm like, yeah, let's work at a startup. Let's help them out. And so when they're great, a piece of Shay is still there when I leave.
I remember during a job interview I had a couple of years ago, the person said to me, "You don't know our product at all, and you don't need to know our area at all." And my answer was like, "Well, I don't need to know your area. I know how to support. I know how to ask questions. I know how to troubleshoot. That's what you need in this role. You need
Yeah,
someone that knows how to put processes in place. I don't need to know your product because I'm going to learn your product. And so
exactly.
I think that is the attitude we have in support. Um, so talking about this, I'd love to get some of your insights on some of the things that you sent me, some of the topics. So what would you say is when someone comes to you and says, Shay, I need to know your bread and butter. This is your go-to skill. What's your answer for people when they ask you that?
It's two things, and it always ties me into, like, I get into a deep conversation even with strangers when we talk about this type of topic. But one is really navigating like really tough conversations with people, and not just necessarily direct reports, but people in general. It could be a really tough conversation with like your manager or a higher up. It really doesn't matter. I think I've really honed in on how to navigate tough conversations. I've had a lot of practice in doing it, and I don't think it was intentional. I don't think anyone was just like, "Hey, give Shay these like really tough, difficult people to work with." But because I have done that, that is something like every time I came into an experience like that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this out. This is something that I've done before. This worked well. This didn't work well, until I just like built this playbook of like, how do you navigate tough conversations? So I think that's one that comes up along with mentoring and coaching. And that's mentoring up. So those really high performers or people who are considered like low performers, those are the two that I feel like I'm really passionate about.
How do you when you have high performers and low performers, those are two completely separate things and you have to handle them differently. What do you feel is more difficult? Having those difficult conversations with your high performer or having that difficult conversation with your low performer?
That's a good question. I think it can be challenging for both because I've been both. So I've been a high performer before in roles, and I've been a low performer before. So I know how I felt in both of on both ends of that spectrum. I know how I felt when I was like performing really high and I had to have like really tough feedback conversations, and then I know what it feels like to be like a low performer or someone who's like not meeting the bar, whether you're trying or not trying. I know how that feels. And so I am a person who is very big on meeting people where they are, but giving analogies, giving examples, like providing proof, and not making anything emotional. As a manager, I think I am very transparent. I have very tough, thick skin, and I've been told that, and I feel like I do in general. So I'm always very open to teams that I manage. Like, I have tough skin. You can give me feedback. I want you to give me feedback. That's going to make me a better leader. But I'm also going to give you fearless feedback. I'm also going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you, like, when things are not going well. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm going to address the elephant in the room in the moment. And sometimes that can seem daunting to people, that can seem aggressive. And again, that's where people tie emotion into it. They're like, well, I felt like this and I felt like this. And I'm like, everyone has feelings. Everyone. We all can feel any type of way. But like, it's get back to the proof and get back to the facts is what I like to get back to. And so a lot of conversations can kind of derail or just kind of spiral out of control when it's all emotion based and it's not factual and you don't have the examples to show the person or provide in the conversation. And so that's something that I really like to do, especially when it's a tough conversation, whether that person is a high performer, which the approach will be different because you don't want the you want your high performers to still feel empowered and have autonomy and be able to do things on their own. Um, but you have to frame it in a way that's improving their process and how they work, and it's going to continue to make them stronger. Where you have an underperformer, that tough conversation is going to be a lot of facts and you just kind of asking questions and trying to figure out how do we get realigned.
I think for both of them, you kind of have to have a carrot on a stick, right? You have to be kind of like moving them along. For your high performers, I mean, that could be something like, hey, if you do this, people are going to see you different, or it's going to be better for your career aspirations, or people in the department's going to start noticing, which maybe they had. But for the low performer, you're right. You have to be straight up with them, like your job could be on the line right here. and where
100%.
you are right now, where I need you to be, I think you can do it. But I mean, it is interesting because I've had those conversations also.
Hmm.
And for me personally, sometimes I think the tough conversations with the high performers can be a little more difficult because, like you said, they can get emotional and they can get defensive, right?
Hmm.
So, how many times have you had a conversation where you're talking to your manager and then they're starting to get emotional? And how do you handle a situation that when you have to basically manage up?
Yeah, that's tough. I think with your manager, and I would say I'm lucky to have not have had to manage up recently, like in like more recent roles. I've had some pretty good managers who were really like, all right, give me the feedback, tell it how it is, and we can work through it. Like we can agree to disagree, or we kind of get to the same like playing field. But in the past, managing up, I think, was tougher because I didn't have as much experience as I have now. And so it was not knowing how to start the conversation, not knowing how to, I would even say how to protect yourself and like have documentation and have proof. I think that was always a big thing. I just always thought we could just go into a conversation, have a conversation, it's over and done, and that's the end of it. Where I honestly don't think that's how it works. I think you have to have some type of documentation, and I think the word documentation has a stigma behind it because it kind of sounds like a has like a negative connotation attached to it. But documentation for each person, for them to just be held accountable. So whether that's in a recap email after a conversation with your manager, just to make sure that you're aligned and like you have clarity on what the expectations are moving forward. I think it's important for your manager just as well to have those, to have a recap, so we both can say, yeah, we did talk about this, we did agree on these things, and this is what we're going to do moving forward, so that one person doesn't leave and they're just like, okay, this is what I think I took from the conversation, and then you both are just like on two different ends of the spectrum, and you're back to having those type of conversations literally weeks later and you haven't gotten anywhere. So I think with management, it's important to just like make sure you recap and make sure you have clarity and you're aligned on like, this is what we talked about. This is why it either can or cannot continue to happen because of like, these are the outcomes. This is what's happening. And then here's the expectations for us moving forward. This is what I would like to see happen. And if this doesn't happen, potentially here are consequences, here are outcomes that could happen if we do have to come back to this conversation. I think so people, everyone in the conversation is aligned, like, okay, if we have to talk about this again, it won't just be a conversation, there may be a little more involved with it.
There's going to be a little more tension in the room if it gets to that next level. Um,
More
what,
people will
what,
be in that meeting.
yeah, maybe someone from a department that has two letters in it. You never know. Um, I've been there. It was not enjoyable, and I did have a manager like that, who you would walk into those meetings. And you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew if they were going to be have the happy face or the frowny face when they came in. And so one approach that I learned from a good manager
Hmm.
that he started doing, and I stole this from him because I steal all the good ideas I get from good managers, was that
As you
he would
should.
have he would have a running shared note for our meetings. And so basically then ahead of time I would add something, he would add something, but then like you said, it was accountability because after that end of that meeting, you both knew what you were going to talk about beforehand. You both knew what you talked about because notes were taken. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on these approaches where you have these shared notes or you have these shared calendars so everyone knows what to expect when they come to these meetings?
I think an agenda is always the way I'm going to go. Like, I want to know what the meeting is about. One, we're in a time now where time is so precious. Like, we don't get it back. So, why are we in meetings where there is no like core reason for, like, could this have been an email? I'm very much like, could this meeting have been an email, right? um so I think that having an agenda is always a smart thing to do. Like, we want to make sure that, like, I mean, I've been in meetings before where I'm like, why am I here? Like, I don't even need to be here. Like, there's nothing that I can like contribute to this meeting, so I don't know why I'm added on it. So I think one, having the option to be optional in a meeting is great. So you're just like, we'd love to have you here, but like this is not like the wheel won't stop spinning if you're not here. And then, like I said, have the agenda so that I can prepare talking points. If I have questions, I can come to that meeting with questions, and I'm not just sitting there in my little box, just being here, for your viewing pleasure, just to say like Shay is in the meeting. So agendas 100%. If I had to add that to some type of checklist, that'd be at the top.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely notice those people that are there just because they have to be there because they're either scrolling their phones or they're cooking things. They want to say their name. So, what was that? Can you say it again? So, you can tell the people that are invested in those meetings, the people that aren't invested. So, I want to go back to something you said near the beginning, and I think this is an important piece. I don't think a lot of people in our space do this, and that is creating your own brand. Because in CX, we sometimes get trapped in our own little bubbles within our companies or within our space. What has been your approach about trying to create the brand of Shay?
hmm I think first everyone should have like a brand of themselves, not like maybe not like a physical brand that's bringing in like income or anything like that. But when you go to a company, you are essentially presenting a brand to them. It's like, what type of person or what type of employee will this person be? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What will I go to them for? So I think you are essentially like creating a brand wherever you go. And that's not just in work, that's in personal life. Like when someone meets you, like who are they meeting? What do they see when they first like are introduced to you? Like how do you present yourself? So I think everyone, we are all a walking brand of just like who you are as an individual. So as far as like building a brand, an actual income generating brand, I think it's not that hard because I'm already building a Shay brand within a company. So I'm telling you who I am, I'm showing you who I am, I'm bringing forth ideas, I am asking like really intentional questions, I'm gaining clarity, I'm contributing in a positive way, I'm making something better. So in my eyes, the next step is to build this actual brand where I'm like, these are the things I struggled with as a manager in the beginning, and I wish I had somebody to tell me this. And I think that's really where me wanting to build this brand, this coaching, consulting type brand, because I didn't have a mentor when I was becoming a manager. Granted, things were different. We didn't have AI and all these tools where you could just probably ask like Claude or Chat GPT, like, how do I become a manager? So a lot of it was like experiences that I was taking from like managers that I've had, experiences that I experienced in different companies. But I always wished I had like a physical mentor, like someone I could talk to, and I didn't have to like dumb down terms. I would always talk to my sister, which was fine. Like she was open to listening to everything, but it was tough because she wasn't in support, she wasn't in corporate, so she's just like, I'm here to listen and provide like a listening ear. But what are KPIs and metrics and strategy and all of that stuff? Like I don't really know about that to give you like good feedback. Um so I kind of wanted to be that person I was searching for like early in my career. That's who I want to be for people. So whether that's me physically coaching you and having sessions and saying like, all right, as a new manager, these are the box you should tick. Um Actually creating tangible like digital resources where whether that's a quiz, a questionnaire, something that will give you alignment and say, oh, okay, this makes sense. Or, yeah, I should track these things as a manager in my company. And so this will be helpful for me when it comes to performance reviews or when I want to ask for a raise and things like that. So that's what inspired me to like make these products, create these coaching sessions, making myself available. And it doesn't feel like work because I like doing it.
You know, the old cliche that if you love what you're doing, you're never going to work a day in your life. And I agree. I mean, that is pretty much true. Um, the one thing I think is kind of funny about people in support is that our mentality and the way we act never is confined to our job. If you're a support person, you are a support person both inside the job and outside the job. and that can infuriate some people. Some people are like, "Why do you keep asking me questions?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, that's just how my brain works."
Hmm.
So, what has been your experiences when people people start to say, Shay, why are you acting like this? And you decide to say, this is just who I am.
Yeah, I've always been a talker. I've always been the person who was just like, you put me in a room with like 100 strangers, I'm gonna know like 99 of them. They will know me when I leave. So I've always been someone who's like finds it really easy to talk to people, and I'm also like, I'm energized by talking to people. So where some people are like, I talk to people all day, my social battery is down, like I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm the exact opposite. Like I need um time set up and allotted for me to interact and be social, because that boosts my energy. So whether that's like a networking event or a happy hour or something like that, I need that to feel good. So I'm never um it doesn't seem like a task. So that's what I'm saying. Like I'm always the person who is open to speak. So I think how it translates at work, like they're like, who wants to present this deck? Who wants to like talk and do this? And I'm like, everyone's like shrinking down. Like I don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh no, me. Like I want to be the person that speaks. I think in one of my previous roles, um, I started to talk to marketing, got really close with one of our field marketers, and they were like, hey, we need someone from the CS team in leadership who's willing to go with us and travel to the trade show and like work the booth and talk to potential customers, talk to actual customers. Like, who wants to do that? And I think all the other managers were like, no, like, one, I don't want to do that. And I have a little one, so I think like the scheduling piece was important. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to go do that. That sounds like very energizing to me for like 6 hours to talk to strangers. So I did the first one. It was great. Talked to potential customers, brought in perspective, like leads for the company, and marketing came back. I think our sales leader and our marketing team came back to my manager like, we need her on like she needs to be at every show. We need her at every trade show to be talking to people. I think I brought in the most qualified leads, and I wasn't on sales, so I wasn't getting paid for those qualified leads. It was just me having genuine conversations with strangers, and so some of them did convert to customers. And I'm like, you know what, if I was on sales, those were equal to dollars. So um that was exciting to just get that recognition when I came back, to know that hey, she was in a different city and she was definitely representing the company in a great way. So
It's funny. I think that people in sport could be good at sales, but most of the time it's generally not in our blood. And by that I mean we love to speak with people, we love to evangelize a product, but then when you say to us, no, you have to get this many leads, or you have to sell this, most people in sport are going to be like, no, I don't really want to do that. But we have all the natural characteristics to make us excellent salespeople. So I think that's a very astute observation right there.
yeah, I think client facing period, because like we handle escalations, it's kind of the same way, except for you're talking to the person pre escalation, like they're not upset. So that's a lot easier, like to talk to these people who are not angry with me, who don't say they hate my company. They're actually inquiring about the company. So I'm like, oh yeah, I could talk to them all day and tell them like why this is a great product for them and the solution we'll provide. So I think it for me it was a lot easier.
I want to go back to one thing that you said earlier, and I've heard this from other managers, and I experienced this myself. What do you tell the people when they are first transitioning from an IC role to a manager role? Because that change can be very jarring. For everyone that's ever gone from that role where your day is established, your day is kind of set in stone, and then you go to become a manager, and then your day has no structure at all. How do you help people make that shift in their mindset?
So I think going from like an individual contributor to a manager, like one of the things is like I have these kind of like these talking points in my mind, or like these like sayings to myself, And one of the things I think, like an individual contributor, like now you're not just worried about yourself, you're worried about a team. Like you're worried about, like, how can I make the team great? And that's a lot of conversations I have with my direct reports who are individual contributors, essentially. Like, you doing great at your job is like the standard, right? So I'm like, okay, you're doing great. You're doing what you need to do. You're ticking all the boxes. But when you move into leadership and you transition into this management role, now your performance is kind of reflected based on like how your team is doing. So you can't just focus on yourself. You actually have to like focus on the people. And so I'm always blown away because sometimes I'm like, you don't like people. Why are you a manager? Like, this makes no sense. Like, I don't know why you became a manager. But for me, I feel like I don't build teams. Like, I build the standard, and then I find the people who want to meet the standards, if that makes sense. And so if I have someone who's transitioning into a leadership role, I'm telling them that. I'm like, you are now dealing with people. You are now working to make them better so that they represent what you built, whether that's a system or a standard. Like, they represent you now. So build a standard and then have those people shift to that standard. Or sometimes, and this is kind of going into that tough conversation piece, sometimes when you shift that standard and you change, that person doesn't fit anymore. That puzzle piece doesn't fit anymore, and maybe this is not the place for them anymore. And that's okay. It doesn't mean like you're not great in your role. But when there are changes and their expectations change, if you're not able to um, cope with those changes and you're not able to kind of like move with those changes, then it may just be like your time is just up in this specific role. And it doesn't mean that you were not performing well, just what you're looking for doesn't align anymore.
I mean, I've seen it many times where people have said, I want to be a manager, I want to be a manager, and then they finally get into the role and they realize, I do not want to be a manager, and it's not what they thought it would be. They miss either the rhythm to their, when they individually contribute, or they realize, this is not the path I want to go on. I want to go back to being an IC. Maybe I want to focus being on more technical. And what I say to them is, well, more power to you. It's good that you are learning what you do want and what you don't want. What I'm here to do is just to be your champion. I'm here to say, if this person wants to go back there, this is why they should go back there. Mm-hmm. In my view, managers should be someone who's always serving the people they support. Either that is a client or that's their direct reports. Because the best leader is someone who's going to basically be their defender for them. I mean, and so when you've had both your good managers and your bad managers, what have you noticed has been the traits of a good manager and a bad manager?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me just give you that manager's name. No, I'm just kidding. um, I think like a good manager advocates for you. They're the bad. They can be the bad guy for you. Like if you're running into a blocker somewhere and you're able to communicate that to your manager and you keep them in the loop and you're not having them looking crazy. That's what I always tell my direct reports. Like, keep me in the know. Excuse me. Keep me in the know. Keep me in the loop of what's going on. Don't have me be the last person to know what's going on, right? I would hate to have like my manager or my director or my VP come to me and say like, who manages this person? These are the things that they did. Where it's like, now I'm a deer in headlights versus if we've already talked about this, if there's a blocker somewhere and this comes up in a leadership meeting, I'm already ready with talking points to let my manager's manager know why. Like, hey, I'm very aware of this. I'm on top of this, and these are the things that I'm doing to make this better, to rectify this. So I think that's the relationship, that's the bond between like a good manager and like their IC. Um, but I think a good manager is like really advocates for you, and they also see things in you that you don't see for yourself, and they're able to pull those out. So if I'm a manager and I'm saying like, hey, we have this opportunity for this project, would love for you to be a part of it. I think like the skills that you've shown in A, B, and C way would directly correlate, and I think you'd be successful here. That direct report can be like, no, like I've never done this before. I don't think I'll be good at this. I don't want to do it. Um, it's up to me as the manager to say like, no, I think you'll be great in this, and this is going to be a great look for you considering you want to do this thing. So I think it's really big for managers to do that. And if you are not doing that, that means you don't know your IC, you don't know your direct report, which sucks, um, because you're not really being an asset to them. So I think that that part of being a good manager is very pivotal. That's important. But then, like, a bad manager is someone who is just really going through the motions. They don't really care. They don't really like people that much. They don't like to interact. And so they are kind of going through just this like checklist that they are not customizing to each direct report. So like I can have a checklist, but it's going to look different depending on like who I'm working with. I think a bad manager or just like a manager who doesn't care. I won't call them a bad manager, but they just don't care. They're not customizing that list. That's an issue. My
Well,
little
I think I hear one of those little people coming in.
thunder, go watch TV. I'll be back.
I've been there. I hear that, and I know that tone of voice right there.
There we go.
Um,
It
I
just
know
started
that
to
tone of voice.
rain here, so
Oh, you like that snapping? Is like, oh, I'm bored.
he's like,
Um,
"It's raining. What's going on?"
so the way I generally like to end a lot of my shows, the way I end my shows now is I have a phrase that I came up with, and I used to end the show just by saying it, but now I like asking other leaders what this phrase means to them.
Okay.
Um, and so what I say is that support isn't just a job; support is a mindset. What does that mean to you?
That's a good question. Support is not just a job, it's a mindset. I agree with that. I think what that means to me is support dives a little deeper. In support, support is the only team I feel like that talks to every customer. And that's a really big deal because I mean we the company would not exist if it did not have customers. So a mindset, I think that's a shift that individuals should have, like when working in support, that when you are in support you're not just an individual. Like when people call in and they reach out, they're reaching not out to Andre, they're reaching out to the company. You're not an individual anymore. So I think that people need to have that mindset that are in support. So provide that type of service, that type of mindset to people who are calling in, who are reaching out. Have that type of, yeah, essentially have that type of mindset because you are not the necessarily the individual to the customer or to the client. You are part of this company, this corporation. So that's where I think it turns from just being a job to a mindset because it's how the customers are looking at you. Like they don't look at you as someone working in support. When I call, you are support. You are who is going to help me, who is going to unblock me, who is going to get me where I need to be. So I think overall, a support mindset is what individuals in support need to have, even though they are working a support job, if that makes sense.
It does, and I couldn't agree more. It's the way I also look at it is that when we start looking at how we think and how we solve things, it
Mm-hmm.
changes over to our life also. The way we interact with people, the way that we talk with people when we call support, because we understand what they're going through. So we have to have that kind of caring mindset at all times. So
I
Shay,
100% agree with that.
Shay, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for
Yes.
coming on Marginal Support, and I hope we can stay in contact.
100%. I had so much fun. This was definitely something I'm passionate about talking about. It was fate that I saw your call out so that I could be a part of this. And I just want to leave people with like, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I am very much one of those folks who are interested in connecting with strangers and seeing how we can help each other. And then just tell people be on the lookout, of course, also on my LinkedIn for those like digital products that I'm going to put out that will really help new managers or managers that are pivoting and trying to move to the next level in their career. So those things are coming soon, and I will definitely be launching them on LinkedIn. So everyone has those Shay resources that have helped me get to where I am.
Well, please tag me when those come out so I can share with my network. Shay, it was great having you on. Have a great day. All right. All right. Bye.